We're going to start today by talking about recall. If you've read the news at any point in your life, you will know that they're the favorite car topic for any non-car publication. They love to put it on the front page and brag about how many vehicles are being recalled. But let's clarify what they actually are. In the US, at least, a recall is a required repair that's issued by the NHTSA to a manufacturer. And generally, this is due to some sort of safety issue. It's one that's been systematically found in a number of vehicles. So, if you remember, one of the most prominent ones recently, there was the Takata airbag recall, where the airbag inflator itself, when activated, could launch debris at the occupant it was supposed to be protecting. Obviously, a uncomfortable situation. There's also this famous Prius recall where the carpet would get stuck underneath the throttle pedal, jamming it open. Again, uncomfortable situation. But a recall is typically something like that, where it is a safety issue that's been systemically identified in a range of vehicles made by a manufacturer. When a recall is issued for your vehicle, the manufacturer is required to notify you by mail when they're able to repair it. Of course, today, being the 21st century, and we don't look at our mail most of the time, there's any number of apps and services that you can register for, just naming some, my Carfax, even the Geico app, whatever it might be. There are a million ways you can be notified when there are recalls on your car. And when you are notified from any of these ways, really the responsibility is for you to contact the manufacturer and set up time for that to get addressed. The repair process itself is one where I found that the most misconceptions exist. For one, you are not liable to pay for any recall related repairs. That is on the manufacturer. A lot of sketchy dealerships will try and take advantage of people who don't know any better. And to be quite honest, a lot of people just don't know this, but you are not liable to pay for any recall related work. If there's a repair required, even if there's related parts that need to be changed while doing the actual recall replacement, you can refuse to pay. The only exception is if the dealer is able to provide you an official statement from the NHTSA stating that a certain amount of cost has been authorized for the customer to pay during this repair. So, and it will say it should say it in clear terms exactly what you'll be liable to pay, no less, no more. And that's the only time you should accept being charged for a recall. You shouldn't be charged diagnostic fees or anything. I will stress that. Please do not get ripped off while trying to get recall work done. So now that we know that, you need to go ahead and get your vehicle repaired. As I mentioned, these are items which have a significant safety risk, so you should definitely be getting it fixed as soon as you're able to, and as soon as the manufacturer is able to make that repair for you. When you go forward, there are a few other rights of yours that you need to know about. One, you have a right to know how long it's going to take to get fixed. Obviously, you are losing use of your vehicle due to a manufacturer defect, and they have the responsibility to not only repair it, but ensure that the disruption on your life and your use of that vehicle is minimized. So you have a right to know how long it's going to take them to fix it. Plus, you can actually request transportation. Now, this is something that not all dealerships are going to authorize or provide, but it is something that you are allowed to request. And depending on inventory, they might be able to set you up with a loaner car or at the very minimum give you a ride home after you drop your vehicle off for the work. So take advantage of those options and try to make the experience as seamless for yourself as possible. And finally, you are not bound by any time limits as far as getting a recall fixed. Of course, as I mentioned, because it is a safety concern, I highly recommend you get it fixed as soon as possible. But you're not bound by any time limits. Let's say you just bought a used car and you just discovered there was a recall on it 10, 20 years ago that an owner never completed. You can go and get that recall work done even now, like no matter how long it's been. I can speak to this from personal experience. I have bought used cars with recalls that were unaddressed 20 and 40 years since when they were announced. A good amount of time had passed under the previous owner during which they were never addressed. And in both cases, I was able to contact my nearest dealership, so Chevrolet and Mercedes-Benz respectively, and without any hassle, only requesting my VIN and my availability, they were able to order those parts in, and my car was in for repairs a few days later. It was great. They didn't give me any trouble, and they fixed the car, and they even cleaned it when they gave it back. So pretty happy camper overall. And I will say that generally, having had recall work done to a number of vehicles over the years, that is what my general experience has been. It is fairly positive. Dealers will not really try to give you issues for having a recall address. So please stay on top of your recalls. They are, at the end of the day, significant safety issues, and they are something that you should get addressed in a timely manner to keep driving your car on the street. So now let's talk about TSBs. A TSB is the Technical Service Bulletin, and you can think about it like a recall light, like a mini recall. It's issued by a manufacturer rather than a governing safety body. And what it is effectively documentation of a known issue. This is usually something that affects functionality, usability, or longevity of a vehicle instead of being a safety issue. And aside from documenting what the issue is and what the cause is, it'll also document what the recommended repair is, including any parts listed. The key difference here is that a TSB indicates a voluntary repair. So unless your car is still covered by a warranty, you're probably going to be paying it out of pocket. There are, however, still a few ways you can control the cost of this, particularly if the dealership in your area charges high rates or maybe even just has bad service or limited availability. You can request the TSB documentation for that issue, and they should be forthcoming with it. And when you have it, there are two things you can do. Either you can take that to your trusted mechanic and they can handle it, they can order the parts and do the repairs necessary, or you can take that documentation, look at the parts list, and walk right over to the parts counter of that very same dealership and order those parts on your own. That shouldn't be an issue at all, and that gives you some options for exactly how you want to have that issue resolved on your vehicle, particularly since the bill is not being paid by the manufacturer of it. So how do you know in the first place that you have a TSB active on your car? Well, although manufacturers are supposed to notify you of these issues, and they are supposed to report it to the NHTSA so you can check it on their online website, this reporting doesn't quite work as well as we'd like. Not, generally, I find that dealerships and manufacturers just wait for people to come in with that specific issue, and then they're able to point them to the TSB and proceed with a repair from there. Honestly, most people probably don't even know that their repair is being done under TSB instructions, and it might not really matter. But another way to know what TSB is really just think about any issues you're having with the car. Like if there's something that's affecting your enjoyment of a vehicle, it's completely free to make a phone call to your local dealership and ask them if there are any TSBs about that specific issue on your vehicle. They should have no issue pulling that up and giving you more information on what it would look like to have that addressed. So if you have something, don't hesitate to call the dealer or even the manufacturer's head office if necessary. Now, one last note on TSBs. If a TSB that you've already had addressed at a later date becomes a recall, then you're actually entitled to reimbursement of any repair expenses you had when you got it addressed. So if you've already paid the dealership $1,000, for example, you can get those $1,000 back since that is now covered under a recall. That's usually a fairly simple process that begins with calling your dealer and they will walk you through the necessary steps. If you had it done by an independent mechanic or if you did it yourself, it is a bit more complicated. And in that situation, I recommend reaching out to the manufacturer directly and asking them how they would like you to submit any documentation of the repairs that are done. But it is still possible, and you are still entitled to pursue that route if you wish to do so. The additional benefit of this is it formalizes in the documentation of your vehicle that that recall was done. So there is a non-monetary benefit as well. So that's recalls and TSBs. To be honest, I find the latter to be quite an under-discussed subject. It never makes the news and never makes the headlines, but it is still an important thing to know if you're trying to enjoy and preserve your vehicle for years to come. So I'll wrap this up, on saying that please stay on top of your recalls. TSBs do tend to be optional, but if you have recalls, it is a significant safety risk. So please have that addressed as soon as you're able to do so. And any number of tools will be able to monitor your vehicle and notify you whenever there's any recalls, so you're not waiting for a piece of mail. Aside from that, please continue to watch these videos. We have some really exciting topics coming up, and they're going to make your life a lot easier. They're going to save you a lot of money. Leave us a like, that helps us reach more people. Subscribe, hit notifications, and that way you will know exactly when we have more content coming up, and it might help you. So thank you again for watching, and we'll catch you next time.